Just so we're clear, Cole said, leaning back in his chair, a smug smile spreading across his face. We wanted you to hear it now, so there's no confusion later. Everything goes to us. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. For a second, I just sat there, frozen. The aroma of Mom's homemade enchiladas, the ones she used to make for my birthdays, lingered in the air, but suddenly the food on my plate felt like ash in my mouth. Across the table, my younger siblings, Cole and Camilla, were both smirking. They looked perfectly at ease, as if they hadn't just shattered the last pieces of my illusion about this so-called family dinner. "Excuse me," I said, my voice low, trying to keep the tremble out. Mom spoke up, her tone clipped and unapologetic. "Celeste, your father and I have finalized our will. The house, the mountain cabin, everything will go to Cole and Camilla." I looked at Dad, praying for some sign this was a joke, some crack in the stoic mask he wore. But he stared at his untouched glass of iced tea like it was the most interesting thing in the world. "Celeste," he finally said, clearing his throat, "you've done so well for yourself, you don't need it. Your siblings, they still need our support." I blinked hard, feeling a rush of heat climb up my neck. Support. For the last decade, I had paid their mortgage, covered Cole's 2 stints in rehab, bankrolled Camilla's boutique idea that crashed in less than a year, and still sent money every month because times were hard. And now they were cutting me out? "So let me get this straight," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "After 10 years of being your unpaid safety net, you're rewarding me by leaving me nothing." Mom sighed and rubbed her temple like I was being difficult. "You always make it about money, Celeste. That's not what family is about." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, it's not about money, it's about respect, about gratitude, about not stabbing the one person who's held this family together in the back." Cole rolled his eyes. "Nobody made you do any of that, you just liked playing the martyr." Camilla tilted her head, twirling a strand of her perfect black hair. "Maybe you thought if you paid enough, we'd finally treat you like you belonged." Their words cut deeper than they knew, maybe deeper than they meant, or maybe that was exactly their aim. Dad stayed silent. Mom stared at me like I was the problem. My siblings looked amused. That's when something inside me snapped. "You're right," I said quietly, pushing my chair back. "Nobody made me. But from now on, nobody gets to expect anything from me either." The chair legs scraped against the hardwood floor, echoing in the tense silence. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair, my movements stiff, every muscle trembling from the effort of keeping it together. "You invited me here to humiliate me, to tell me I'm nothing more than a bank account. So here's my answer. I'm closing the bank." Their faces were stunned for just a moment. Then I turned and walked to the door, not waiting for a response. The night air in Denver slapped me with cold clarity. As I reached my car, I realized something vital. I had come here hoping, desperately, that maybe, just maybe, they'd treat me like family again. But they hadn't, and they never would. I had just been officially erased, not just from their will, but from their lives. And maybe that wasn't the end. Maybe it was my beginning. The drive home felt like floating underwater, slow, muted, unreal. The lights of Denver blurred past my windshield as I gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. My ears still rang with their voices. "You liked playing the martyr. You just wanted to be loved." That part hurt the most. Because it was true. I had never wanted their money. I wanted to belong. I parked outside my apartment complex and sat in the car, staring at the dashboard clock as the minutes ticked by. 9:37 p.m. Just over 2 hours since I walked into my parents' house thinking it would be a family dinner, and walked out feeling like a stranger to people I once would have died for. Inside my apartment, the warmth of my home mocked me. Everything looked the same, but something had shifted, something irreversible. I kicked off my heels and went straight to my kitchen, pouring myself a glass of wine, the expensive Malbec I'd been saving for a celebration. Well, screw it. If I was mourning a fantasy, I might as well drink to the death of my delusion. Laptop open. Banking app pulled up. First transaction, $2,100 monthly transfer labeled parents, home support. Second, $450 for Cole's, therapy dog training. Third, $625, Camilla's boutique lease payment. My cursor hovered over each one. My chest tightened, fingers hesitating. Then I clicked, cancel, cancel, cancel. The final screen flashed, recurring payments terminated. I leaned back and exhaled, a quiet, trembling breath. For the first time in years, I wasn't pouring money into a bottomless pit of entitlement, and yet guilt twisted in my stomach like a stubborn weed. "You're abandoning them," a voice inside whispered. "You're turning your back on your family." I squeezed my eyes shut. That voice, it was hers, Mom's. The same voice that had convinced me for years that family sacrifices, and "we need you just a little longer," and "Camilla's fragile, you know that." That voice had built a prison out of love. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke early but didn't feel rested. My phone buzzed as I poured coffee. One voicemail. From Mom, of course. I hit play. "Celeste, please stop being so dramatic. We never said we didn't love you. But this tantrum, it's disappointing. Call us back when you've calmed down." Family doesn't treat each other like this. I stared at the phone, lips curled into a bitter smile. Family? Family doesn't use you until you're dry and then toss you aside like used tissue. Family doesn't gaslight you into thinking your pain is overreaction. Family doesn't punish you for succeeding. I deleted the voicemail. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Mom, then Dad, then Camilla. Each voicemail a different flavor of guilt. "You're really going to let us struggle, after everything we did for you. You're being selfish. You'll regret this. One day we'll be gone, and then what?" Each message tightened the knot in my chest, but I never picked up. They didn't want resolution. They wanted control. Then came Cole. His message was short, smug. "So you think you're better than us now, huh? Fine. We'll see how long you last without a family." A shiver ran down my spine. It wasn't the words. It was the way he said family, like a threat. I blocked them all. And for the first time in over a decade, silence settled around me like a warm blanket. Unfamiliar, fragile, but peaceful. Still, somewhere deep in my gut, I knew it wouldn't last. They weren't done. And neither was I 3 weeks past. 3 weeks of silence that I wore like armor. No more calls, no voicemails, no emails. No passive-aggressive texts from Camilla asking if I could spot her for another skincare subscription. It was eerie, almost peaceful like the eye of a storm. I threw myself into work. Bennett Design Group was finalizing the Eco Resort project in Park City, and I volunteered to lead the on-site inspection. It meant long hours, video calls with engineers, drafting updates from dawn to dusk, but I welcomed the distraction. Exhaustion dulled the ache of betrayal better than anything else. Then, on a chilly Thursday night, I flew back home to Denver. It was late, close to midnight, when the elevator in my apartment clicked to a halt on my floor. I wheeled my suitcase down the hall, eager for my bed and the bottle of lavender oil that helped me sleep again. But when I reached my door, I stopped cold. Something was wrong. Thick yellow foam had oozed out of every seam around my front door, hardened, grotesque, like some alien cocoon. "What the hell?" I whispered. I touched it. Rock solid, spray insulation foam, industrial grade. Whoever did this didn't want me getting in or out. My chest tightened. Hands trembling, I dropped my bag and stepped back, pulling out my phone to call building management. 30 minutes later, the night concierge arrived with a flashlight and a face full of disbelief. "You sure you didn't do this?" he asked. I shot him a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "No," I snapped. "I've been in Utah for 3 days." "Check the cameras." He gave a low whistle and started making calls. Eventually, a locksmith was dispatched. He arrived groggy, muttering under his breath as he examined the mess. "This is deliberate," he said flatly, carving away at the foam. "Takes a while to harden like this. Someone came here with a plan." The thought made my stomach churn. There were only 3 people in my life who would do something this petty and cruel. Cole. Back inside, at nearly 2 a.m., I sat on the edge of my couch, still in my travel clothes, my suitcase untouched. My heart wouldn't stop racing. I opened my security camera app, pulling up the feed from the small hallway cam I'd installed 6 months ago, after Camilla accidentally lost her key and borrowed a designer coat from my closet. I scrolled to the night before. There. Timestamp. 9:42 p.m. A figure in a hoodie and jeans approached my door, face hidden, but the gait, the swagger, the casual tilt of his head, I knew it. I would have known it in the dark in another life. Cole. He held the spray can like a trophy, grinning as he jammed foam into the cracks layer by layer. My throat burned. Rage and disbelief twisted in my gut. This wasn't just a tantrum. This was malicious sabotage. Retaliation for daring to walk away. I saved the footage. Sat there staring at the screen, heart thudding. Then I called Aunt Lucia. She answered on the second ring. "Celeste, what's wrong?" I told her everything, my voice shaking, shame creeping in like smoke. There was a pause, then her voice turned firm. "Listen to me. If you don't draw the line now, he'll keep crossing it. You've enabled them long enough." "I know," I whispered. "Then do what you need to do, and don't look back." That night I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I filed a police report the next morning. I handed over the footage, gave Cole's full name, phone number, and last known address. The officer nodded as he jotted it down. "You've got more evidence than most people ever do. If this checks out, he's in real trouble." Good, let him be, because I was done being their punching bag, and if this was how they wanted to play, I was ready to end the game. The text came in on a Friday afternoon, right as I was preparing for a client presentation. "Family meeting tonight, you owe us that much. 7 p.m., be there." Mom, I stared at it, jaw tightening. Owe them? The only thing I ever owed them was silence, and I'd paid that debt for over a decade. Still, curiosity tugged at me, or maybe it was the last shred of hope I hadn't quite killed off. Without replying, I packed up my laptop, told my assistant I'd be leaving early, and drove to my parents' house in Cherry Creek. It felt alien. The same red brick porch I helped repaint. The same welcome mat I'd bought them for their anniversary. But now it looked like the front of a courtroom, not a home. I knocked once. The door swung open. Mom stood there in her pearls and pink sweater set, her expression pinched. "Celeste, glad you decided to come," she said stiffly, stepping aside. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Cole lounged on the arm of the couch, arms folded, defiant. Camilla scrolled on her phone, chewing gum like she wasn't the villain in my story. Dad sat in his recliner, eyes darting between the floor and the fireplace. And in the corner, quietly sipping tea, was someone I hadn't expected. Aunt Lucia, her eyes met mine, soft, sympathetic, but also cautious. I sat on the edge of the love seat across from them, legs crossed, back straight. The room went silent. Then Dad cleared his throat. "We called this meeting to clear the air," he began. I said nothing. "Celeste," Mom continued, "we assumed by now you'd come to your senses. Obviously, you haven't." I let out a slow breath. "My senses are the only thing I've come to, Mom." Dad leaned forward. "Do you understand what you've done, pressing charges against your brother?" "He vandalized my home," I snapped. "What would you call it?" "Oh, don't be dramatic," Mom said, waving a hand. "It was just foam, he didn't hurt you." "Intent doesn't have to come with blood to be dangerous," Aunt Lucia muttered quietly, but no one acknowledged her. "Besides," Mom added sharply, "you've always made such a show of being the savior. Maybe this was your way of punishing us for not praising you enough." That did it. I stood, heart hammering. "No, this is me realizing that praise was never coming. That no matter how many bills I paid, how many crises I fixed, you would never see me as anything more than a resource." Camilla finally looked up, lips curled. "You liked playing the hero, Celeste. Let's not pretend otherwise." Cole scoffed. "Yeah, well, real heroes don't call the cops on family." I turned to him, jaw clenched. "Real family doesn't sabotage the one person keeping the lights on." My voice rose before I could stop it. "You drained me for years, all of you. Every vacation I canceled, every relationship I wrecked trying to keep you all afloat, and when I stopped, you treated me like trash." No one responded, not Mom, not Dad, they just sat there, silent, cold. The silence was louder than any insult. I picked up my bag and turned to leave. "If you walk out now," Dad said behind me, his voice hollow, "don't expect to come back." I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Then I turned slightly over my shoulder, eyes burning. "I've spent years waiting for you to make space for me in this family," I said quietly. "I finally realized there is none, and I'm done begging for it." And with that, I walked out, down the steps, past the hedges I once planted, out of their lives. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. The first sign came 2 nights later. I returned from a late client dinner downtown, heels clicking softly against the concrete of the parking garage beneath my apartment building. I approached my car, juggling my keys, when I saw it, long, jagged scratches slashed across the driver's side door. At first, I thought maybe it was an accident, but then I saw it. Spray paint. Red, 2 words. Ungrateful B*TCH. My stomach dropped. The garage was dim, nearly empty, and suddenly every shadow looked like a threat. I whipped around, heart pounding. No one. By the time I got upstairs, I was shaking. I poured a drink, sat at my desk, and pulled up the garage security footage. It took less than 10 minutes to find the clip. There he was, Cole, hoodie up. Same jeans, same slow walk. He crouched beside my car, spray can in hand. A look of smug satisfaction painted his face as he vandalized what he clearly thought I loved most, my independence. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I went straight to the police. "This is a pattern," I told the officer as I showed him the new footage. "First the foam at my apartment, now my car, he's escalating." The officer nodded. "Do you feel unsafe?" I hesitated. "Not yet, but I know Cole. If I don't stop him now, I will." He filed a second report, added it to the file, and confirmed they would contact Cole directly. That afternoon, the calls started again. First, it was Mom. "Why are you doing this to your brother? He made a mistake, Celeste. He didn't mean it." Then Camilla. "Are you trying to destroy him? This is disgusting, even for you." And finally Dad, who didn't even try to mask his fury. "You've always been a disappointment. We just never said it out loud." I blocked them again, but the emotional whiplash was taking its toll. I was drowning in stress, sleeping 4 hours a night if I was lucky, and constantly looking over my shoulder. It was like living in a war zone, but the battlefield was made of bloodlines. Then came the straw that finally broke me. I logged into my email one morning and found a message from HR. Subject: urgent complaint filed regarding misuse of company funds. My heart sank. The email outlined a tip they'd received, claiming I had used the company card for personal renovations on my vacation home. They deflagged the invoice I'd submitted months ago for an architecture project in Utah, when I'd covered myself and labeled clearly as business expense. It was a false report, a deliberate attempt to ruin my career, and I knew exactly who sent it. Camilla worked in PR. She knew how to twist things. She always did. I called our finance lead, Jordan, who'd reviewed the original expenses with me. He was furious. "We know this is fake," he assured me, "but someone's gunning for you, Celeste. Be careful." That was it. That was the moment I felt it, the final severing. They didn't just want me gone, they wanted me ruined. But they had underestimated me. They thought I'd cave, that I'd break under pressure like I always did, that I'd come crawling back, apologizing for standing up for myself. They were wrong. Because I wasn't scared anymore. I was done playing defense. It was time to show them what happened when I played offense. The cursor blinked on my laptop screen, taunting me like a challenge I had avoided too long. For hours I'd paced my apartment, replaying everything, every sacrifice, every silent humiliation, every voicemail laced with guilt. The paint on my car, the HR complaint, the vandalism, the mockery. All of it because I said no, because I chose myself for once. I sat down, cracked my knuckles, and opened Facebook. Enough is enough. That's how I started the post. For the next 2 hours, I poured out the story I'd kept silent for too long. How I paid my parents' second mortgage for 5 straight years, over $100,000. How I funded Cole's 2 rehab stints and covered his credit card debt when he nearly lost their house gambling. How I helped Camilla launch her luxury handmade jewelry business, which collapsed in less than 6 months after she blew most of the money on photo shoots and influencers. How I renovated the mountain cabin, alone, with my own money, thinking I was building a place we'd all share. And how they thanked me by cutting me out of the will and turning on me the moment I stopped paying. I didn't name names, but everyone who knew us would know exactly who it was. I ended the post with a single, quiet line. Choosing myself isn't selfish, it's survival. Then I hit post and waited. I thought maybe a few coworkers or college friends might react, maybe a distant cousin or two, but within an hour it had over 1,000 shares. The comments poured in dozens, then hundreds. Some were supportive. "This is heartbreaking and brave. Thank you for speaking out. You are not alone. This story feels like mine." Cutting off toxic family is the hardest kind of healing. Others weren't so kind. This should have stayed private. Air your dirty laundry much. Maybe there's a reason your family cut you off. But I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I had told my story, and it was no longer buried under years of forced silence. Then came the explosion. My phone rang. Mom, I didn't answer. Voicemail. How dare you humiliate us like this, Celeste? Do you have any idea what you've done? Her voice cracked, not with guilt but rage. I called her back. She answered on the first ring. What the hell is wrong with you? No, I said, my voice calm, clear, and ice cold. What's wrong with you? You let them bleed me dry for years, and when I stopped, you turned on me. You're destroying your own family, she shouted. No, I said, slower this time. You did that when you made me disposable. There was silence. Then a whisper, you were supposed to be the strong one. I was, I replied, but being strong doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. I hung up before she could answer. 2 hours later, Aunt Lucia showed up at my door with Thai food and a look in her eyes I hadn't seen in years, pride. I've been waiting a long time for you to speak up, she said, handing me a bag of steaming takeout. Some of the cousins called me. They had no idea. Your mom, she lied to all of us. My shoulders dropped, the first sign of peace settling in. I'm just so tired, I admitted, my voice breaking. I didn't want to blow it all up, but I couldn't keep pretending. Lucia reached out, squeezed my hand. Then stop pretending, be free. That night I finally slept, really slept. And in the morning, for the first time in years, I woke up without dread pressing on my chest. The truth was out, I had nothing left to hide, and if my family wanted war. They just learned I wasn't afraid anymore. The days after the post felt like waking up in a house after a storm. The windows still rattled, the air was heavy, but the sky outside was clear. At work, people stopped me in the hallway not with pity but with respect. My boss called me into her office just to say, that post, that was powerful, brave. I'd always been the quiet achiever, the one who kept her head down, worked late, never complained. But now, people saw me. Not just for my accomplishments, but for my truth. I dove into work like it was oxygen. The Eco Resort project in Park City got greenlit for expansion, and I was promoted to senior project director. Bigger team, bigger budget, no more apologizing for my ambition. And for the first time, my paycheck belonged to me. No surprise Venmo requests from Camilla. No panicked calls from Dad about unexpected repairs. No more emergency, plane tickets for Mom to visit her sister and mysteriously never pay me back. Every dollar I earned was mine, and it felt glorious. Meanwhile, the fallout back home was unraveling fast. Aunt Lucia kept me updated with short, blunt texts. Cole lost his job, showed up hungover again. Your dad's retirement fund is nearly gone. Camilla's trying to sell handmade candles on Etsy now. No sales. It should have felt satisfying. It didn't, not really. It felt tragic, predictable, like a train I'd tried to stop for years but finally stepped off of. Then came the call from Dad. I stared at the caller ID for a long time before I answered. Celeste, he began, voice brittle, your mother and I were struggling. The mortgage is 2 months behind. They're threatening foreclosure. I said nothing. He coughed awkwardly. We were hoping you'd reconsider. Maybe just help us get back on our feet, one last time. A familiar ache bloomed in my chest, but I wasn't that girl anymore. Dad, I said quietly, do you remember what Mom said the night you told me about the will? A pause, then Celeste, please. She said I always made it about money, I continued. So I stopped. I stopped making it about money, and now so do you. He didn't reply, so I did what I should have done years ago. I hung up. No rage, no guilt, just peace. A few days later, Camilla sent me a venomous text. Hope you're happy. Everyone hates us now. We lost everything. I read it 3 times, waiting for that old stab of guilt, but it never came. I typed back slowly. You didn't lose everything. You lost me, and that's on you. No reply, and that was the last time I heard from any of them. Weeks passed. The silence felt different now. Not lonely, liberating. I booked a 2-week trip to Italy, something I'd dreamed about since architecture school but always postponed because family needed me. Venice, Florence, Amalfi Coast. Solo. Standing on a rooftop in Florence, overlooking the dusky orange skyline, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. No one was calling me for money. No one was guilting me into saving them. No one was rewriting my story. I was finally living it on my own terms. When I got home, I joined a weekend hiking group, started painting again, and even went on a few dates. One of them, Miles, a quiet urban planner with soft eyes and a killer sense of humor, actually stuck around. One night, as we watched the sunset from my balcony, he asked, "Do you regret it?" Cutting them off. I stared out at the horizon for a moment before answering. "I regret how long it took me to do it," I whispered, and I meant every word. 6 months later, I stood at the window of my apartment, coffee in hand, sun pouring in through sheer white curtains, and for the first time in years I felt still. No buzzing phone, no guilt pressing against my chest like a loaded backpack, no more waking up wondering which sibling would sabotage my peace next. Just stillness. The holidays came and went. I spent Thanksgiving hiking in Sedona, surrounded by orange canyons and strangers who greeted me with kind smiles and zero expectations. On Christmas, Aunt Lucia and I cooked pasta from scratch in her tiny kitchen while Miles brought over a bottle of wine and lit candles around the living room. No drama, no crying in locked bathrooms, no pretending, just warmth. I had built a life of my own, piece by piece, brick by hard-earned brick. Meanwhile, my parents? I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine. Mom had picked up a job at a local diner, working the early shift, wiping tables in silence. Dad had started stocking shelves at a home improvement store, a far cry from the pride-filled lectures he used to give about hard-earned legacy. Cole had gotten into trouble again, this time for attempting to forge documents to get a loan. Camilla was still trying to become a lifestyle influencer. Her Instagram feed was all rented cars and borrowed joy. I didn't gloat. I didn't pity them. I just watched it all from a distance, like a storm that finally moved out to sea. Then, one cold night in January, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Aunt Lucia, wrapped in a navy wool coat, snowflakes melting in her silver-streaked hair. She didn't say a word, just hugged me. Tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "You made it out." We sat in my kitchen, mugs of tea between us. "They still think you're the villain," she said. "They tell people you abandoned them, that you let them suffer." I smiled faintly. I didn't abandon them. I just stopped saving people who were never drowning. They were too busy dragging me under. She nodded slowly, and now I'm free. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "And you're never going back." I didn't hesitate, not a chance. Before she left, she paused at the door. "I know it hurts still, the love you never got, the thank you that never came." "It does," I admitted, but I stopped expecting it. And when I let go of that expectation, I got something else in return. What? A life. That night, I stood at my window again, city lights twinkling below. The world was quiet, but I no longer feared the silence. I welcomed it, because that silence meant freedom. They thought cutting me out of the will would break me, but what they didn't realize is that it saved me. They took everything material, houses, cabins, heirlooms, but they gave me the one thing they never meant to. The freedom to choose myself, and I did. Finally, completely. What would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away from your family, knowing it meant leaving everything behind? Or would you have stayed, clinging to the hope they'd change? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Because sometimes, choosing yourself is the bravest thing you'll ever do.